Yeah, I know I made a video saying that I probably wouldn't do this, but I gave a caveat and the caveat has been reached and I'm now making a video on this topic. You may have a couple of questions about this. For starters, you may be wondering, why 60? Well, very simple. I originally wanted to do my top 435, but then I realized, that's a bit too much. Especially considering with senators, you have like a huge biography you can look into, whereas for the House of Representatives, a lot of House members, their biographies are literally X name. They served in Congress from X year to X year. The end. There are some websites where I could look into their platforms and such, but that, again, way too many House members to do that for, so I decided let's just make it an even 60 and be done with it. Alright, now here's some ground rules for the list. 1, I want to keep this briefer than the Senate video or the eventual gubernatorial video or like other like top 10 lists. So the descriptions for these guys are going to be a bit more briefer, but you'll just give you a better chance to look into that. And due to this, they'll be a bit more broad in positioning. Like, logistically, if you switch 2 and 3, there really isn't going to be much difference. Same with, 59 and 58. You can switch them and it doesn't really matter. These are just 60 representatives that I find pretty cool, and you should probably look into them if you're into this kind of stuff or not. Another thing, anybody who has made it onto my previous senators list or president's rankings will not be allowed to be in this list, but they can 100% make it into future Senate lists that I might do. Wink, wink. Next is I will try to keep current House members to a minimum, only picking the best of the current representatives, even though they logistically could have made good filler choices to make the list longer. But I just wanted to give you more historical figures, to make this one more objective and cool and historical sounding. Alright, now with that out of the way, here are my top 60 House of Representatives in U.S. history. Number 60, Walter B. Jones. Walter Jones is the furthest in regards to my views on a lot of things. Pretty much all of his social issues and a lot of his economic issues. But I do really like the story of how he became a fervent non-interventionist due to the Iraq War, and I logistically think, that's pretty good. I can commend him for that. Number 59, Thaddeus Stevens. While Thaddeus Stevens started his career as a terrible know-nothing, he became a radical abolitionist Republican, and that's pretty good in his time period. Being a radical Republican was pretty lit back then. Number 58, Thomas E. Watson. He was a great leader of the People's Party in the House, passing certain bills like the Rural Free Delivery Service, even when he had only 8 members of his party in Congress. However, his short House tenures kinda when his good qualities kinda went, as he's not gonna be making it on my Senate list anytime soon. Number 57, Daniel Lindsay Russell. He was pretty much the Marion Butler of the House of Representatives, teaming up the Republican Party with the Greenbacks to pass some good legislation, though he didn't serve too long in the House to have a big impact. Number 56, Garrett Smith. He was a very popular abolitionist at the time period, but like the last one, his tenure was way too small to make a big impact. Number 55, John Paul Cavale. He was the longest representative of the Farmer Labor Party in the House of Representatives. Number 54, George Schneider. He was a leading progressive in the House after he left the Republican Party. Number 53, William Fitzryan. He was the first representative to critique the Vietnam War, but I'll be honest, the person who would end up replacing him would be way better. Number 52, Roy William Weir. He was a pretty far to the left congressman, but there's really nothing too notable about him. Number 51, Claude Kitchin. He was an opponent to World War I and frequently clashed with Woodrow Wilson Despite this, he got to be in top House of Representatives positions representing the Democrats. Number 50, Adam Clayton Powell, a very progressive Democrat standing up for black rights, but had some money controversy that puts him down a peg. But hey, at least it's not like anti-Semitism or becoming an extremely far-right Republican further down the line. Number 49, Craig Washington. He was a very left member of the House from Texas, and one of the furthest left that the House has ever had. Number 48, John Lewis. Me and John, we've had our differences. If you listen to my podcast, you know where we clash. But he has a good record, and it should be commended for what it was. Number 47, Franklin D. Roosevelt Jr. was very interesting, as he was the literal son of FDR, who pretty much tried to model himself in his father's image. But even though he had a huge amount of influence, and the fact that he was able to win with a third-party banner, he did not use any of that to his advantage. Number 46, Joseph Rainey. He was the first African-American elected to the House of Representatives. He did a good job fighting for African-American rights and such. Number 45, Davy Crockett. Adamantly opposed Jackson, especially the Indian removal, and also gave his own party some of its fair critiques. Number 44, Morris Hinchey. He was one of the earliest voices in the House of Representatives to oppose fracking. Being one of the forefront persons on an issue is a pretty good thing. Number 43, Lynn Woolsey. She was a leading congressional progressive during her time period, though probably not as much as we would say a progressive is today. Number 42, John Oliver. Another very similar, decently leftist congressman who probably should have stayed around given how the Democrats are going now. Number 41, George Miller. He was one of the leading progressive Watergate babies in the House of Representatives. His successor's alright, but I mean, if he was still around, nobody would be bothered that much. Number 40, Helen Goghan Douglas. She was a New Deal liberal that was smeared by Nixon in the Senate run as the Pink Lady. Definitely worth supporting. Number 39, Benjamin Franklin Butler. He was a radical Republican in the time period where that was lit, trying to smash the KKK before they were born and fighting for the rights of former slaves. Definitely makes up for his looks. Number 38, Brad Miller. He was a leading voice in the House of Representatives for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and probably one of the best representatives North Carolina elected. Number 37, Lane Evans. He was one of the founding members of the Progressive Caucus back in the time when the Progressive Caucus was decently to the left. Before like half of their members left, and then the other half kind of went watering down on their message. Number 36, Allard K. Lowenstein. A very progressive anti-war Democrat, but tenure was one term, so can't really make a big record on that. Number 35, Mo Udall. I wasn't sure about him at first, too mainstream for my taste, but looking at his record, he's fine, and definitely deserves at least some of the praise he was given. Number 34, Patsy Mink. She was a very prominent progressive congresswoman, also the first Asian woman of color elected to Congress. Number 33, James Roosevelt, the more effective of the Roosevelt kids, also known for being one of the earliest anti-McCarthy congressmen. Number 32, Daniel Webster, a very prominent historical congressman who was able to make the Federalists look good for a brief period of time. Number 31, Henry Clay. This was one of the few times that Clay was actually successful, and for the time period, he was fine. Number 30, Mike Capuano. He was just an overall leftist, like the typical Massachusetts liberal type. Even the person who would end up primarying him agreed, he's fine. Number 29, Claude Pepper, a very progressive congressman from Florida, who we'll probably be knowing more about in the future. Number 28, Jeanette Rankin. She was the first woman elected to the House of Representatives who was a well-known pacifist and a suffragette. Number 27, Leo Isaacson. prominent leftist congressman that was helpful to Henry Wallace's presidential campaign, even kind of serving as a proxy between him and Truman, but he was just a one-termer, so his coolness doesn't get too far. Number 26, William H. Mayer, another prominent leftist congressman who, after his one term, kick-started another person's political career. But even though he was the furthest left congressman, it's still just one term. Number 25, Harold Washington, a Chicago progressive who rallied against the establishment in favor of minorities. Number 24, Emanuel Seller, leading voice for Civil Rights Act and was kind of the Estes Kefauver of the House. Number 23, George Brown Jr., a fierce opponent of the Vietnam War and a fierce advocate for the Civil Rights Act. Number 22, Philip Burton, was a very progressive congressman breaking with tradition, also known for being the first to push for AIDS legislation. Number 21, Tip O'Neill, House Speaker who was actually really progressive on a lot of issues, such as universal health care and even a federal jobs guarantee. Number 20, Major Owens, the DSA-affiliated librarian congressman who is way on the level of his predecessor. Number 19, David Bonnier, leading congressional voice against NAFTA and apparent longtime DSA member. Number 18, Pete Stark, a very progressive congressman during his 40-year tenure, plus the first openly atheist congressman. Number 17, Alan Grayson, an aggressive progressive who had a pretty good tenure, all things considered. Number 16, John Conyers, a very progressive congressman who set the stage for a political issue that is now at the forefront of our discourse. But allegations that led to him resigning were pretty bad. That kind of knocked him down from being any higher.
Number 15,
Ron Dellums, a very known open Democratic Socialist congressman who was very notable for the time. Number 14, Fiorello LaGuardia, a fierce pro-labor New York socialist, kind of like a certain newer person we may have been hearing about. Number 13, William Lemke, a progressive populist who worked across many party lines to get things done. Number 12, James B. Weaver, a very good leftist congressman who butted heads with the political establishment of both political parties. Number 11, William Jennings Bryan, very similar to Weaver, but maybe you could argue he was more successful in the long run. Number 10, Victor L. Berger, the first Socialist Party member to be elected to Congress, and even had many bold ideas, even compared to now. Number 9, Keith Ellison, he walked so that someone else could run. Number 8, Bella Abzug. Battling Bella was AOC long before AOC was born. Speaking of which, number 7, AOC. Now, I know she's pretty new, but, I mean, she has been notable for all things considered. She has a long career ahead of her, so we'll see if she stays here or if she goes down or up. Number 6, Barbara Lee, the lone vote against the authorization of military force for Iraq. That will forever cement her in the progressive movement, even if she makes a hiccup here and there. Number 5, Ro Khanna, the leading modern progressive in the House, definitely worth your support. Number 4, Vito Marcantonio, another socialist Italian, but was the glue that pretty much held his entire party together. Number 3, Mayor London, definitely the better of the two Socialist Party congressmen, most notable for being the lone voice against the Sedition Act. Number 2, Shirley Chisholm. She was elected unbought and unbossed, and definitely retired that way. And number 1, we have Dennis Kucinich. Kucinich has a very interesting political career, who might get a video on his own, all things considered, but all you need to know is, for his record, he's been a very long-standing progressive who was at the forefront of plenty of issues in our political discourse. So yeah, those are 60 representatives that I think are pretty neat. And I don't think I'll be making a part 2 or part 3, so just stick with these guys and you'll be good. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, join my Discord, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.